The magic of a show doesn't just come from the clothes, the city, or even the plot. It comes from a feeling and energy that makes you want to stay in that world forever. Sex and the City wasn't just another TV series. It was a cultural moment. It made people feel like they were part of something bigger, something glamorous, yet strangely relatable. But when the revival and Just Like That returned, many fans asked the same question: where did the magic go? To understand what went wrong, we first need to remember why the original was so special. In the late 1990s, television was very different. Shows about women were usually limited to romantic comedies or family dramas, and rarely did they dare to explore independence, sexuality, or female friendship with honesty. Then came Sex and the City. From the moment it premiered, it shook the world. Suddenly, 4 women were talking openly about love, sex, ambition, and heartbreak in ways that felt fresh, daring, and unapologetic. It wasn't just entertainment, it was a revolution in storytelling. The strength of the show came from more than its subject matter. At its heart, it was about friendship. Carrie, Miranda, Charlotte, and Samantha were all different, almost like pieces of a puzzle, yet when they came together, the picture was complete. Viewers saw themselves in these women, the messy, complicated parts as much as the glamorous ones. The brilliance was that the characters weren't perfect. Carrie was flawed, often selfish. Miranda was cynical yet fiercely loyal. Charlotte was traditional but with hidden steel. And Samantha was fearless, bold, and full of life. Their imperfections made them human, and their bond made them iconic. Then there was the city itself. New York wasn't just a backdrop. It was the fifth character. The bustling streets, the coffee shops, the late-night taxis, it gave the show its pulse. For many viewers, especially those who had never set foot in New York, the city became a dream, a symbol of independence and possibility. Every shot of Manhattan felt like an invitation. Come live this life, even if just for half an hour. That sense of place added to the magic, blending fantasy with reality, and of course the writing. The dialogue sparkled with wit, humor, and sharp observations about modern life. The show's writers weren't afraid to dive into awkward conversations or explore taboo topics, yet they always did it with humor and charm. A line spoken over brunch could become a cultural catchphrase the next day. The rhythm of the dialogue, combined with Carrie's thoughtful voiceovers, gave the series a signature style that no other show could replicate. Fashion also played a major role in creating the magic. Patricia Field's costume design turned clothing into a language of its own. Carrie's tutu in the opening credits, Samantha's power suits, Charlotte's timeless dresses, Miranda's practical but stylish looks. These choices weren't just about outfits. They were extensions of the characters, visual clues about their personalities and growth. Fans didn't just watch the show. They absorbed it, imitating styles, quoting lines, and even changing how they thought about their own lives. Most importantly, Sex and the City made people feel seen. For single women, it was a validation that their stories mattered. For men, it was a window into conversations they'd never been allowed to hear. It gave permission to talk openly about things society often kept private. Every episode left you with a sense of connection, laughter, or even heartbreak, but always with the comfort of knowing these 4 women would return to that small table, clinking their glasses and reminding us that friendship could survive anything. That was the magic friendship. Humor, honesty, and glamour all wrapped together in a way no other show had managed before. It felt bold yet effortless, fantasy yet deeply real. And that's why fans still hold the original so close to their hearts. It wasn't just a TV series. It was a lifestyle, a comfort, and in many ways, a dream. When word first spread that Sex and the City would be returning in a new form, fans all over the world felt a rush of nostalgia. After years of speculation, the revival and Just Like That promised to bring back the women who had shaped conversations about love, friendship, and independence for an entire generation. It felt like a reunion with old friends who had been there during heartbreaks, job changes, and long nights of laughter. The anticipation was electric. The announcement carried with it a powerful question: What would these women look like in their 50s? The world had changed since the last time we saw them clinking cosmopolitans at their favorite bar. Social media had reshaped how we date, feminism had entered new conversations, and ideas about gender, race, and sexuality were now front and center. Fans expected that the revival would not only capture the old sparkle, but also weave these new realities into the story with grace and honesty. It wasn't just about curiosity, it was about legacy. The original series had been groundbreaking, so expectations were sky high. People weren't just hoping to see Carrie and another pair of Manolos, they wanted the show to evolve with them. The women who had watched Sex and the City in their 20s were now older too. They had grown through careers, marriages, divorces, parenting, and even grief. The revival carried the weight of representing that journey, a chance to show that life at 50 could be just as adventurous, messy, and magical as it was at 30. The marketing built on this sense of reunion. Teasers showed Carrie, Miranda, and Charlotte strolling the streets of New York again, their heels clicking against the pavement. The trailers teased glamorous outfits, stylish apartments, and the familiar rhythm of city life. For many, it stirred up the kind of excitement usually reserved for blockbuster films. Social media was buzzing, critics were speculating, and fans were rewatching old episodes to prepare. The message was clear, the magic was coming back, but alongside the excitement, there was also an undercurrent of worry. The absence of Samantha, Jones played by Kim Cattrall, hung like a shadow over the announcement. Samantha wasn't just one of the four women. She was the bold, unapologetic heartbeat of the group. Her confidence and humor balanced out the others, and without her, fans wondered if the chemistry could ever be the same. The show's creators assured audiences that the story would still feel whole, but the doubt lingered. Another expectation rested on how the show would handle modernity. In the original run, the women were navigating dating, careers, and self-discovery in their 30s. Now, they would be facing middle age, a stage of life often ignored on television. Fans wanted authenticity, the challenges of aging, the beauty of reinvention, the complexity of raising teenagers or facing loneliness after decades of marriage. The revival had a rare opportunity to spotlight stories rarely told on screen, and audiences hoped it would do so with the same charm and honesty. That made the original so beloved. There was also the hope that the revival would continue to celebrate New York as a character. In a post-pandemic world, with the city reshaped in so many ways, people yearned to see that familiar dreamscape once again, the late-night dinners, the bustling sidewalks, the sense that possibility was always just around the corner. For many viewers, the return of And Just Like That wasn't only about the characters, but also about escaping back into the New York of their dreams. In the months leading up to the premiere, discussions filled online spaces. Fans debated what kind of careers the women would have now, what their children might be like, and how their friendships might have changed. Some feared the revival might try too hard to be modern, sacrificing the effortless tone of the original. Others were optimistic, imagining new layers of depth that only age and experience could bring. The expectations weren't small, they were monumental. People wanted the revival to honor the past, speak to the present, and inspire the future. They wanted laughter, they wanted tears, and most of all, they wanted to feel that same spark, that indescribable magic that made the original a phenomenon. When the first episode finally aired, millions tuned in not just to watch a show, but to measure a promise. Could lightning strike twice? Could these women still carry the same energy they once did, while also growing into something new? The answer, as fans would discover, was far more complicated than anyone had imagined. The premiere of And Just Like That should have felt like sliding into a pair of old, beloved shoes, familiar, stylish, and full of confidence. Instead, for many viewers, it felt awkward, almost as if those shoes no longer fit. The sparkle that once made Sex and the City shine seemed dimmed, replaced by a heavier, uneven tone. From the very first episodes, audiences began to ask themselves, what happened to the magic? The most obvious absence was Samantha. For years, she had been the fearless voice, the friend who cut through drama with a sharp one-liner and unshakable confidence. Without her, the group dynamic felt unbalanced. Carrie, Miranda, and Charlotte carried on, but the rhythm was off. Their conversations, once lively and full of wit, now often felt heavy, awkward, or incomplete. It was like a four-part harmony suddenly reduced to three voices capable, but missing the note that made the song soar. Then came the writing. In the original series, dialogue sparkled with humor and honesty. Conversations about sex, love, and friendship felt both groundbreaking and natural. But just like that, many of those conversations came across as forced, almost as if the writers were trying too hard to tick every cultural box. Topics like gender identity, race, and privilege are important and necessary, but the way the show handled them often felt clumsy, as though the characters were reading from a checklist rather than living out authentic experiences instead of starting conversations. The show sometimes left audiences cringing at dialogue that didn't match the characters they once knew. Another misstep was tone. The revival leaned heavily into grief and seriousness, especially with the storyline of Big's death. While it's true that life in your 50s comes with heavier realities loss, health scares, the challenges of parenting teens, the original series had a gift for balancing light and dark. Heartache was always softened by humor, and even the toughest moments carried a sense of resilience. And just like that, the balance tipped too far. Episodes often felt weighed down, with humor scattered like an afterthought. The whimsical charm of the original, those moments of laughter in taxis, awkward brunch confessions, or spontaneous adventures, was almost nowhere to be found. Miranda's storyline became another point of contention. Once admired for her sharp intelligence and no-nonsense wit, she suddenly felt unrecognizable to longtime fans. Her journey into new love and self-discovery could have been a powerful arc, showing that growth doesn't stop at 50. But the way it unfolded left many feeling that her character had been rewritten rather than evolved. Instead of depth, audiences saw confusion. Instead of empowerment, they saw clumsy reinvention. Charlotte, too, seemed locked in a loop, repeating old patterns rather than growing into something new. Her character, once a portrait of tradition clashing with modern life, was reduced to predictable anxieties and shallow concerns. Even Carrie, the voice of the series, struggled to shine. Her narration once offered sharp, witty reflections on life in New York, but in the revival, her voiceovers often lacked the punch, the poetry, and the rhythm that made them iconic. Without that guiding thread, episodes felt scattered, lacking the cohesion that once tied everything together. And then there was the city itself. New York, once a living, breathing character in the story, was strangely muted. Gone were the vibrant montages of bustling streets, quirky side characters, and the serendipity that gave the city its soul. Instead, New York felt like a backdrop, a stage set rather than a heartbeat. For a series so deeply tied to the fantasy of urban possibility, this shift was particularly painful. Fans wanted evolution, not erasure. They wanted to see these women face modern challenges with the same humor, honesty, and intimacy that made them icons in the first place. But too often, the revival presented change without depth and modern issues without nuance. What was once organic now felt manufactured. Instead of conversations that flowed naturally over brunch, viewers got lectures disguised as dialogue. Instead of friendship that lifted every story, they got strained interactions that left something missing. Critics and fans alike pointed out that the magic wasn't just gone, it had been replaced by something else entirely. What had been bold now felt cautious. What had been witty now felt preachy. And what had once been a celebration of possibility now often felt like a reminder of limitations. The problem wasn't that the women had aged. Fans were ready to embrace them in their 50s. The problem was that the show seemed to forget what made these women compelling in the first place: their chemistry, their humor, their flaws, and their unshakable bond. Without those, and just like that, became less of a reunion and more of a reminder that sometimes trying to recapture the past can leave you further from it. Asterisk the disappointment surrounding, and just like that left many fans wondering if the magic was gone forever. But here's the truth: magic doesn't always vanish, it changes. The real question isn't whether the show can recreate the glitter of the past. It's whether it can discover a new kind of sparkle that feels honest to who these women are. Now, to recover that magic, the series doesn't need to chase nostalgia. It doesn't need to squeeze Carrie back into her tutu or force Miranda into another cynical rant. What it needs is authenticity. The heart of Sex and the City was never just the fashion or the romance, it was the honesty of four women figuring out life together. If the revival can lean back into that core, it might just find its rhythm again. The first step is remembering that friendship was always the anchor. No matter how chaotic their love lives became, Carrie, Charlotte, Miranda, and Samantha had each other. That bond was a safety net, a space for laughter, tears, and unfiltered truth. Without Samantha, the dynamic feels broken, but the writers could still honor that energy. They could allow the remaining women to be messy and real with one another again, less polished, less scripted, more human. Audiences don't need perfect conversations about social issues. They need the raw, awkward, and funny moments that real friends have. Another key lies in tone. The revival tilted so heavily into heaviness that it forgot the joy that once defined it. Reclaiming humor doesn't mean ignoring grief or challenges. It means finding levity even in tough moments. The way the original show once did. Think about when Charlotte struggled with infertility, heartbreaking, yes, but softened by her friends' support and small bursts of humor that reminded us life isn't just one note. That balance is the secret ingredient. Without it, the show risks becoming a lecture, not a story. New York also needs to breathe again. The city used to pulse with possibility, every corner holding a surprise, every street buzzing with energy. Reviving that spirit means showing New York not as a postcard backdrop, but as a living, unpredictable character. Let the women get lost in the chaos of the subway, stumble into unexpected neighborhoods, or find inspiration in strangers they meet. That serendipity was always part of the fantasy, and it could be again. There's also an opportunity in aging itself. Television rarely tells stories about women over 50 with nuance or respect. And just like that could break new ground by leaning into those realities with honesty and grace. Show the beauty of reinvention at midlife. Show that friendships don't fade, they deepen. Show that romance, desire, and ambition don't disappear with age, they transform. If the revival dared to tell those stories authentically, it could offer something just as revolutionary as the original did, and yes, the fashion still matters. Clothes were always more than fabric in this world. They were symbols of identity, growth, and fantasy. But instead of trying to shock with outlandish outfits, the revival could use fashion to tell deeper stories. How style changes with age, how it empowers, how it becomes an armor against the world. Carrie's shoes and Charlotte's dresses don't just need to look good. They need to say something again. Can the magic be fully recaptured? Maybe not. Nostalgia is a tricky thing, and sometimes the glow of the past can never be replicated. But that doesn't mean the story is over. Magic doesn't have to be about recreating the past. It can be about creating something new that feels just as meaningful. The women of Sex and the City once taught audiences that life was full of possibility, no matter how messy it got. And, just like that could teach us that life is still full of possibility, even when we're older, wiser, and carrying scars. In the end, maybe the real magic isn't in recreating lightning in a bottle. Maybe it's in embracing change with honesty, humor, and heart. If and just like that can rediscover that truth, it doesn't just stand a chance of winning back its audience. It stands a chance of giving us something even more powerful, a story about aging not as an ending, but as another beginning. And that, in itself, could be the spark of a whole new kind of magic.